But we can look at what the dream was and where we are. In fact, we have to, because we're in a place right now, as far as race relations are concerned, if you haven't noticed, where it's time to talk about these things. Hello? We must talk about these things. Dialogue is essential if we're going to move forward. And some people don't want to talk about it because it's uncomfortable. And other people think, we've done enough talking. And yet, if you would be honest, you would find that a lot of times we're talking around to get where the rubber meets the road. To be real. And my question is, are you ready? Because every one of us has a role to play. Something, some part that we need to play. And if you don't notice how essential it is right now, then you're fast asleep. But circumstances will wake you up. Because without something happening, I don't foresee it getting better. Now, when I ask that question, some people have a pie in the sky mentality about where we are. Dr. King would be proud, so we should be proud that we can pat ourselves on the back because mission accomplished. And you expect that I'm going to validate that. And then some of you have a gloom and doom perspective. We haven't gotten anywhere. And you expect to validate that. And then there are others who say, we have made progress, but lately we seem to have reversed course. So I don't know where you fall in that, or if you're not, if I there's some other perspective you have that I didn't mention. So when we come to things like this, and we listen to somebody speak, a lot of times, rather than hoping to get a new perspective, we just want somebody to validate the perspective we already have. I didn't come to validate you. I'm not really interested in validating your perspective. I came to share my perspective. And perhaps you can hear with your heart, and maybe there's something that you can gain from it. Agree, disagree, but it's a conversation that we need to have. And so even as I speak, I feel like I'm opening myself up for some self and some introspection, because I can't ask you to do that if I haven't. And I've already told you I'm grappling with this whole thing. And I found as a teacher there would be times when I would pose a question to my students. Interesting how you can do that. You can pose a question to others that you've not taken the time to answer for yourself. And I've done that many times, and I've had my students converse and have them share, and then they would say, well, Ms. Ross, what do you think? And I realized for the first time I had not thought about it. But I have thought about this and struggled a little bit with it. Without an explanation from you, and before I even break down what I believe Dr. King's dream was, I'm going to ask you, based on what you perceive his dream to be, raise your hand if you feel like you have a good idea of what his dream was. If you think you have an idea of what Dr. King's dream was. Don't be shy. Wow. There are actually people in the room that have no concept at all. You think you have no concept at all of what his dream was? Well, I'm sure glad we're having this tonight. All right. So now here's my next question. Raise your hand if you feel that his dream has come to pass. If we have achieved that. I'll do it like this while I leave my students. If you say yes, absolutely, thumbs up. If you say absolutely not, thumbs down. If you're somewhere in the middle, thumbs to the side. Can we do that way? And I'll just read the room. Okay. I think I see we're all here. It looks like we're all here. Okay. Now again, if I ask you to share why you feel that way, I really get some really interesting responses. So, some people would say that Dr. King's dream was for black people to be equal. But that wasn't it. So that would be a waste of time. And that would have led to despair. Because man can't make man equal. Okay? So the dream wasn't that black people would be equal. That's a task too big for man. As he quoted the Declaration of Independence in that famous I Have a Dream speech, he did not dream for equality among people. He understood that people were already equal. So he wasn't asking for equality. That wasn't the dream. He understood that the Declaration of Independence, which declared that all men are created equal, only reiterated what he knew that God had already given. Right? That we are all God's creatures. That we were all created in His image. That we all have a divine purpose. And he understood that. And he recited the Declaration of Independence, which declared that this was a truth that ought to be self-evident. Self-evident. It shouldn't even require conversation, really. We hold these truths to be self-evident. It's obvious that all men are created equal by the fact that they were created by a creator. We were created equal, so his dream wasn't about equality in terms of being. It was about treatment. It was about how we are treated, that we would be treated equally. That we would live out what he already knew was the case. Where are we now? Ask yourself, as I speak, where are we now? And again, a dream wasn't just a speech, but that speech covers so many things. And I just want to be honest and say, my personal perspective is that we have not achieved the dream. Have we advanced? In many ways, yes. Have we managed to live and work in closer proximity to different types of people? In many ways, yes. But have we reached the pinnacle of that dream? I say no. In some ways, we're still very much segregated. Our neighborhood, for whatever reason. I'm not calling you racist. I'm just saying. And our neighborhoods, our churches, our schools, our political parties. Look around the room. Think about your circle that you flow in. And there are all kinds of different reasons for that, but I'm saying, when you think about your circle, does it represent everyone, quote, sitting around the table of brotherhood together, as he said, sons of former slaves and sons of former slave owners? And if it does, great. And if it doesn't, did you ever say, why not? And we have seen so much, especially recently, and we've heard so much. And we're witnessing blacks against whites and whites against blacks. Even in this state, the show me state is showing me something. And we've heard accusations of racism and of police brutality and of inequities in education and of a failed economic structure, lack of opportunity, and the list goes on. We've seen riots and violence and looting and envy and strife. We've seen frustration directed in non-constructive ways. Have you seen it? And we made it a political issue. When, to be honest, though our opinion often falls down political lines, and though politics have played a role, in reality, it really isn't a political issue. It's a spiritual issue. So when we relegate things to just being politics, we do ourselves, we do our country, we do the whole discourse, we do Dr. King's dream, we do your dream a huge disservice, a dangerous disservice. We're the spiritual issue. America can't restore America to its greatest self, to its original design. Only God can. And from our founding, men knew that God had a design for this country, but a greater design for his kingdom. And so when we first embrace his kingdom design, everything else becomes self-evident. You hear me? It's only self-evident when you embrace something greater than yourself. And that's what separated, I feel, Dr. King from other people. Because his focus was something greater He came from a perspective of faith. He came from a perspective of understanding that we were endowed by our Creator. And that's what separated him from some of the others. Think about, how many of you know Malcolm X? Yeah, Malcolm X. And we've often heard very negative things about Malcolm X. We call him violent and we call him a radical. And people always compare Dr. King to Martin Luther King. Very different ways of doing things. I did a lot of studying on Malcolm X, and he was called violent, but he really wasn't associated with any violence. He was a part of the Nation of Islam. His mindset was, I'm not marching for equal rights. I'm not begging you for equal rights, and I'm not turning the other cheek when you treat me bad. I will, if you stick a dog on me, I'm going to shoot the dog. If you are holding down my wife and kids, I'm going to do my best to kill you. And that we go. But think about it. Which one was more radical? To me, it's natural. If you hit me, I hit you back. If you're sticking a dog on my child, I'm going to do what I can to protect my child. To me, that's just natural. But we may even have to be radical. Dr. King was radical. To give love for hate. To forgive instead of being bitter. To be nonviolent no matter what. Malcolm X said it is impossible to be nonviolent with people who are violent with you. Dr. King said love and turn the other cheek and not to be bitter. That's radical. And that's what separated him from so many others. And he called all of it in action, not passivity. And a lot of people think of meekness as weakness. He was a man of action. Do you agree? So where are we now? But as I say, even though I said no, I don't believe we've reached it, I do want you to understand that I stand here today with an awareness as a black woman that there are people who paved the way for me to be where I am. That progress has been made. Having taught for over 17 years, not every day, but there were many a day where I stood there and I shared this with my students. I stood there understanding that I was standing on the shoulders of people who had come before me, that there were ancestors who paid the price so that I could be there, that there was a time in history where it was illegal for black people to even be able to read, much less teach others to read, much less help others love to read. I understood that. It's an amazing thing. My ancestors could not wrap their brain around what I have already experienced. So yes, we are within the dream, you see, but we're not so far to go, I think, even now, because I feel like we're going backwards. I think of the poem by Maya Angelou. The poet Maya Angelou just died within the last year, not even a year. And there's a poem called Still I Rise. And she ends the poem with these words. She says, out of the huts of history's shame, slavery, out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. I love this part. She says, leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Now check this out. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. And if you were my students, I'd make you snap, because that's what you do after you hear the poem. But I understand that as I stand here. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I am everything that they would have wanted to be, that they would have dreamed to be if they could have even thought that far in human form. I am. And I realized that those who came before me, the Harriet Tubmans, the Frederick Douglasses, and the Medgar Evers, and the Martin Luther Kings,